Hello and welcome to another An Old Man Watches. And today I'm going to be talking about 1960 Italian science fiction film Assignment Outer Space, also known as Spacemen, a feature of a lot of particularly European and Italian in particular science fiction and films in general for that matter from earlier decades is that they often came out under multiple different names. This is just one example of that. So what's this film about? Well, it's a little bit confused about what it's about, but ultimately the main plot emerges to be that there's an out-of-control rocket radiating a deadly energy field and it's on a collision course with the Earth. Oh no! And the only ship that can stop it is crewed by a surly by-the-book commander, the navigator who is secretly his girlfriend, and a newly arrived reporter who might come between them and or expose their relationship. Because, at one point it looks like the plot of this movie is about maybe the reporter will expose their relationship. That's actually the second plot it looks like the movie might be about. The third plot is which turns out to be the real plot, is the out-of-control rocket. There are other crew members on the ship as well, but their role in the film is clearly to die, so we don't need to concern ourselves with them. So, what's this movie feature? What did I find interesting about it that I wanted to talk about? Well, there's a few things. I will mention before I really kick in that unlike a lot of Italian science fiction, this film is making a genuine attempt to take itself and its content and to be presented as a serious movie. It's not terribly successful in this effort. But I did find its kind of awkward earnestness quite endearing, despite its kind of failure to really deliver on what it was trying to do. But let's get into a bit more detail. So first of all, on the subject of trying to be a real serious movie, actual character arcs. A lot of low budget films, and in fact films in general, lack reasonable, effective, convincing character arcs. A really common example of this is romantic relationships between two characters who at the end of the movie are in love for no better reason than that they've both been on screen a whole bunch. There are so many movies where two characters hook up at the end, because they just spent most of the movie together. But realistically, there hasn't been a lot actually done to establish a growing relationship. This film, I'm not saying that this film entirely dodges the whole bad romance bullet, but it does have an effective arc between the commander and the reporter, who initially, they clash heads, they butt heads really badly, but ultimately the reporter, through his bravery, wins the reluctant respect of the commander. And that's actually quite well done, and it's effectively kind of done. And that's nice. It's good to see. Always pleased to see something being executed reasonably well in a movie, particularly a movie that I went into with pretty low expectations, given what it was. The second thing I wanted to talk about was betrayed by technology. Not the characters. I guess them too, given the premise of the movie is, out-of-control rocket ship. But I'm talking here about the filmmakers. Making this movie, probably actually making it in the late 50s or very early in 1960, they clearly never imagined a world where viewers could, watch films in slow motion or even pause them. This is probably most classically illustrated by a scene where a quote-unquote spaceship crashes into a quote-unquote planet, and it's actually stock footage of a car exploding. They'll never notice. Well, maybe not in 1960, but when people can actually pause videos and say, hey, that looks like a car blowing up, you've got a bit of a problem. So yes, it's interesting to see the shortcuts that filmmakers take and how they can betray them later. So they didn't even have a model that they blew up. They literally just used stock footage of a car exploding. Quality work, guys. Finally, losing the narrative thread. Despite its efforts to convey a more serious atmosphere than a lot of its goofy brethren. Particularly, I mean, Italian movies, they're often like, and now Yetis, and now clones, and now, they throw a whole bunch of kitchen sinky stuff into the mix. Assignment Outer Space doesn't do that. It's trying to be taken seriously, but it's still got real narrative problems. As I've mentioned already, the deadly rocket ship is the third kind of putative main plot the film's offered up to us. It's kind of offered, it's kind of presented that there might be two other possible main plots before this, which is not the greatest of structures, but also the events of of this actual main plot that happen and the way it's resolved and the kind of denouement of the whole script require the movie, and thus us, the audience, to forget or ignore things that have been established as facts earlier in the movie. It's like they kind of started a movie about, these three people and how and their relationship, and then decided it wasn't exciting enough, so they put in the exploding rocket plot and rewrote the second half of the movie but didn't rewrite the first half. And so things that are established as true and factual in the first half of the movie are just ignored in the second half of the movie because they get in the way of the narrative. That's not ideal. But it's really not uncommon with a lot of this low budget science fiction stuff. So that's some interesting features of this movie. It's probably not a movie I would necessarily recommend, though. As I said, I did kind of find its inept earnestness a little bit endearing, to be honest. So next time, I'm going to talk about a more recent movie. It's called The Assassin Next Door, which, it's not quite the movie that you might be expecting from that name and that picture. But we'll get into exactly what it is next time. But for now, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and catch you in the next one.